Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another review. This is what will hopefully be the first of many to come out in 2021, and I thought I'd start it off with the Umbrella Academy Apocalypse Suite. Yes, I do realise that by now everybody probably knows who the Umbrella Academy is. I don't really think I'm going to introduce anybody into the concept through this video, but still, I had people asking me if I was ever going to do a review of the TV series, and I always like giving the book a chance first, so I thought it was about time that I sit down with it and give it a read. So for a bit of a background, this first book was 6 issues long that released between September 2007 and February 2008. It was written by Gerard, who people might recognise from My Chemical Romance, and it was illustrated by Gabriel, who did Day Tripper. It was published by Dark Horse Comics and picked up by Netflix in 2017 for an adaptation that is probably the reason why it's most famous. It premiered 2 years later in 2019, and it's had great success since. There's been a second season, and there's even a third on the way. But even though the Netflix series is talked about and held to quite high acclaim, the book doesn't really seem to get as much love anymore. And I wondered if the original comics still held up today, so I'm going to sit down, we're going to talk about the plot, the art, we've got a spoiler-free section, then we've got a spoiler review, all before my final verdict. But before we can get into any of that, it's time for my too long didn't watch. So this is my TLDW, it's the part of the video for people who don't want to watch the full thing but you still want to know what the book's about. So with the Umbrella Academy, if you liked Heroes Season 1 but you didn't like how much they focused on the end of the world storyline and wished that they focused more on the interpersonal relationships of the superpowered characters, then you're in luck because there are few stories that will serve you better than the Umbrella Academy Apocalypse Suite. So if that's all the video that you needed, thank you for watching, and make sure that you give it a thumbs up and get your paws all over that subscribe button if you want to become a part of the Dog Pound. But if you're looking for something a bit more in depth, let's start by taking a look at the plot. With no warning, 43 women across the world give birth at the same time. They show no signs of pregnancy and there is no connection between the mothers. So Reginald Hargreaves, who's an eccentric entrepreneur and also an alien, adopts 7 of them. They aren't given names, they're just given a number, in which Hargreaves is assigned in order of their usefulness. And from birth he trains these so that by the time that they are children they can become superheroes and have formed the Umbrella Academy. During their heyday, this team just works well together. They even stopped the Eiffel Tower from going berserk at one point, and near enough everybody on the planet knows who they are. But now it's 20 years later. Number 6 is dead, the team is disbanded, and all the members have gone their separate ways. It's only the death of Hargreaves that will bring this team back together, and they can't even stand being in the same room, and tensions are high throughout. The remaining members don't even want to talk to each other, but the world has different plans for them. Because number 5, who time travelled when he was younger and hasn't been seen since, returns and tells them that the world is going to end 3 days after the funeral that they're all there to attend. On top of that, Dr. Terminal, who was one of the foes that they fought whilst they were children, has a contingency plan in the event that the team ever assembled again. And if that wasn't enough, I haven't even mentioned the Orchestra of Adaption yet. So the team that doesn't even want to be a team has got to keep all those foes at bay whilst at the same time trying to determine what's going to bring about the end of the world, and that's even if the Umbrella Academy can find all that out before they end up killing each other. So is it even possible for the Umbrella Academy to team up once again and save the day? What's changed between the teams since they last defended Earth 20 years ago? And how exactly can they save the planet when they don't even know what they're saving it from? When I'm looking at the art, I find it weird because there's not many projects that I can imagine Gabriel actually working on, and that's not me insulting the dude or anything like that, it's just his style is so abstract and unique, because at the same time I can't imagine any other artist working on the Umbrella Academy. In many ways when I was reading this book he reminded me a lot of Mike Mignola, but where I think that Mike Mignola works better because of his use of block colours, Gabriel was better because of the fact that he knew where exactly to use detail. So even though Mignola would be the artist that I compare him to the most, there's still enough differential there that you can say that there's a lot unique about both of those artists. Maybe it's just something to do with Dark Horse, I don't know, maybe there's something in the water that makes them all have this abstract style that also looks like it's working very hard with like harsh lines and stuff like that. But this was one of those stories that I'm glad I read it at the time that I did, because it isn't a brainless read, even though it might just seem like quirky sci-fi fun, because of the fact that it's one of those stories where most of the detail isn't even in the speech bubbles. It's not about reading between the lines, it's about looking between the panels. So you have to look inside the Eiffel Tower, you have to look at the book that's on the bedside table, you have to look at the posters that are on Luther's walls. So in that way it reminded me quite a bit of something that would be written by Alan Moore. You know, when you read Watchmen, it doesn't matter how many times you've read it, you still see much more in the detail because of the fact that you've seen it before and now you get to see it with a different pair of eyes. If I'm telling you the truth, I read this book twice in preparation for this review, and the second time I already saw the detail that I missed out on the first reading. So Gabriel Bar's art is great because it allows you that chance to get extra levels of detail each time you come back to this book. The art was also really expressive, and if I had to put a definition to his style, it would be deceptively simple, because you look at it and there isn't detail absolutely everywhere, but he knows exactly where to put it. And in a similar way, that reminded me a lot of Darwin Cook. And I like that it was clear that Barr had that instinct within his craft to know exactly where he needed to draw up to. Like, the page that really sticks with me is the first splash page that we get of issue 1, so obviously we can see all of France and we get to see the Eiffel Tower in the foreground. The only real criticism that I've got of the art is that when the Umbrella Academy were kids, I didn't really know who was who. This also might have been a minor fault of the writing because of the fact that I didn't know who each number was at that point. I believe that when they were doing the single issues, they actually told you who each character was in like the inside pages of the cover, and I'm not sure if maybe I just overlooked it in this hardcover here, but I didn't see that before I started reading, so for me it was quite difficult to know exactly who each character was. And that sort of unfortunately made it the case that until about issue 3 there were some characters that I didn't even really know the name of. I kept getting Klaus and Diego confused the entire time, and then they also had about 3 different names, they also had a number, so that's the only real minor criticism that I can have of the art in this book. And like I said, I don't even know if that's the fault of the art or if it's of the writing itself. But even though I know I don't want to see this style in every single comic that I'm going to read moving forward, and I get the sense that it's something that I'd prefer in smaller doses, I am really glad that it's the art that we got for the Umbrella Academy, and I wouldn't change it for anybody else's. As we're moving into the spoiler-free review, I feel like I've got to start this with a confession because I didn't think I'd enjoy this book. Sure, I get that we're supposed to go into everything with an open mind, but from what I'd seen from the Netflix show and from what I'd heard about the book, I thought it was one of those stories that was just going to be quirky for the sake of being quirky. But I don't think there's ever been a case of me being more happy about being wrong about a story because of the fact that there was just so much more to this book than what I was expecting. For me, it was the relationships between the characters that I found most interesting and I wanted to see more of, and I liked being able to piece together what could have happened between the characters in the 20 years since they'd last teamed up. To deviate from what I do in my usual reviews, I'm probably going to talk about the characters more so than the plot for this book, and Luther was one of my favourites. I felt like he was one of the more complex characters, but at the same time he was reserved about it. He didn't feel the need to constantly tell everyone what was going on with him or his backstory or anything like that, and I think he was a great leader. He kind of reminded me a lot of Superman in many ways. Obviously he's got the physicality towards him, but obviously Superman hasn't really got that gorilla body. But you got the sense that in this crazy world he was the one that had the most level head, and I really liked that about him. Then you've got Diego and Klaus, who were 2 characters that I didn't necessarily dislike, I just felt like I didn't really warm up to them in this book, and hopefully that's something that changes over the course of the series. Whereas I really enjoyed scenes that were involving Allison, I just feel like she didn't have too much to do in this story, and number 5's a character that I enjoyed. I'm just going to talk more about him in the spoiler section. And the last of the main characters is Vanya, and I just didn't like her. Like, I give this story the benefit of the doubt because it already packs in so much story for just 6 issues, but Vanya was one of those characters that just seemed to flip a motivation at the drop of a hat, and it didn't really feel organic. Pogo was a fun character though, and I wish we could have had more time with him, and with Hargreaves I liked how we got all these hints to how awful he was to the kids when they were growing up, but at the same time there's that weird sense of twisted respect that's shared across all the characters because of the fact that he was the only father figure that they had. I know I do have to talk about the plot, but like I said, I feel like the characters really saved this story, because I said it in the TLDW, but the end of the world storyline that they were going with just seemed to be an afterthought to the overall thing. Like, how can you tell us that the world's gonna end in 3 days and there'd be no sense of urgency to preventing that? Like, how is it that these mechanical KFC buckets that are going across trying to kill everyone on a pier are more threatening than the Apocalypse Suite? Hopefully there's a more formidable villain that shows up in the later books, because I liked the conductor and I liked all these evil speeches and stuff like that, but as soon as he left that auditorium, the threat behind him just seemed to weaken. But with a book that's only 6 issues long and still somehow manages to pack in so much character, I can let the villain thing slide. It's like how the Avengers first teamed up to fight Loki, because it's about how they assemble rather than who they're going up against. But I do think that's all I can say before I start spoiling this book for the few people that haven't read this book before me, so let's just jump into the spoiler talk. Again, this is your last spoiler warning before I start ruining this book if you haven't read it already. I'd recommend just checking the timestamps below and jumping to my final verdict. I'm gonna have to start off with this, but why did they have to kill off Pogo? Seriously, like, was there any need to do that? Because I'm hoping that in the future books they find some way to bring him back, especially if number 5 can travel through time, because Pogo, Luther and number 5 were my favourite characters in this book. And I know I've said this in my spoiler free section, but I want to bring this back up here so I can talk about it a bit more in depth. But why was the end of the world scenario scenario pretty much forgotten about. It felt like Gerard Way must have been writing his ending, tying it up in a neat little bow, and obviously you've got the conductor going to the Umbrella Academy mansion, sorry, Hargreaves mansion, and then that threat's gone, the white violin's no longer a threat, and it's like, oh shit, I forgot that I said the world was gonna end, just throw a meteor at everyone. I'll admit I'm known for being a bit ignorant and not always picking up on the subtle details of things, but was this ever foreshadowed that there was going to be some kind of meteor strike? It just felt a bit lackluster. It didn't really feel like a threat that was actively coming towards the Umbrella Academy and just something that they had to stop. But I think it would have been better if the prophesized end of the world would have been something that's going to be in a future book, and you could have really built towards it, build up that sense of dread, build up that sense of unknown, give us little clues here and there, and this first book could have just been about assembling the Umbrella Academy again, putting behind all the bad blood that's gone on between them, you know, develop Vanya's character and that story arc that she has across the book a little bit more, and just have them fighting the Terminauts, because that felt like a more impending doom than the end of the world that has been seen by one of the main characters. Like, the Terminauts attacking the pier had a much more frantic sense of agency, and obviously you saw them reacting to the news. The team had to piece together what they were dealing with and make as much of a plan as they could, and at the same time they still didn't even want to work with each other. But the meteor strike, it was pretty much absolved before I even realised what exactly was happening. Who knows, maybe this is Gerard's way of commenting on how overused the end of the world type storyline is. The scene where number 5 shot Vanya really caught me by surprise, and it's probably only second to Pogo dying. I loved how Diego was trying to go through with it and he was trying to kill her, but something inside of him just kept stopping him. But when number 5 just came out of nowhere and blasted her in the side of the head, that solidified him as one of my favourite child characters. I know he's not technically a child, but you get what I mean. But number 5's story was really well done. I'm so accustomed to stories that use the future as a device just to carry the plot, but this was a character that lived there. The overwhelming majority of this character's life's been spent in a time frame that he's now trying to prevent even existing. And then he's had to come back to a world that he doesn't really recognise, but everybody recognises him because he hasn't really aged a day since then. But obviously he doesn't recognise the family that he's got around him. Hargreaves is now dead and the team's completely disbanded. That was just a great level of depth to this character, and I'm just really hoping that they explore that even more and the effects that that can have on him in the future books. But from being real with you, I did feel a bit disappointed that all of the 6 main characters survived this book. Yeah, I know Vanya's obviously paralysed and Alison's now mute, but Pogo was the one who had go. It just felt like the book played it quite safe to me, and obviously I'm letting a lot of stuff go because of the fact that it's only 6 issues long and there's obviously more story that's waiting for me, but something about that just felt off with me, and they put these characters into life-threatening situations and they all still managed to come out of it. But speaking about the sequels, this book just sets up a load of great possibilities that I'm really excited to read about. I'm interested in seeing how the team moves forward and if Alison and Luther can get together and how Vanya's going to play back into the story. You know, is she going to try and integrate back into the team? Is she still going to be a villain? I don't know, but the fact that it's making me ask all those questions and I don't feel like I can already guess the answers and I actually want to see what those answers are is probably the best testament to this story. Because when it comes to this hobby, there's no better feeling than when you read a book and you just want to read more of that exact same book. So this is my final video where I'm going to summarise my thoughts and give the book an overall rating. And what the main takeaway for me with this book is that it does more with 6 issues than what most books can do with 12. Like with certain reviews, I feel even dumber than usual when I approach them, and this book was one of them that made me have that feeling. Because I feel like I was in the position of one of those people that read a comic and they say it's one of those must-reads that you're probably going to absolutely enjoy, that you've probably never heard of it before, and then it's something like Watchmen. Or do you know, like those people that act like Harry Potter's some kind of underground cult classic that nobody's really heard of? That's how I kind of feel when I do a review about something like the Umbrella Academy. But there's a reason why this series broke into the mainstream and why it's more difficult to review this 13 years after its release than it would be if I was reviewing a 3 omnibus collection. Yet despite the fact that I believed that I had an inkling of what was waiting for me beyond the cover, there was still so much more that I didn't really expect. Like, these characters did not exist before this comic was released, but they were written in a better way than some series that has a character that's already existed for 80 years before. And the pace was done in such a way that you got a history and an understanding of these characters without it ever really taking the focus away of what was happening at the present time. And although some plot points don't get the attention that they deserve or don't really carry the same weight that you'd expect them to, even if you think you know exactly what you're getting with the Umbrella Academy, it's still worth checking out. Whether that be from the sense of imagination, the unique art, or the characters that make you want to read the sequels as soon as you finish this one, this comes with one of the greatest recommendations that I can give it. As a result, this is going to get a very high score of 4 out of 5 woofs. Woof 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 woof. So that was my review of the first book of the Umbrella Academy, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed it. If you've read this book already, why not give your review in the comments section below. As well, still having some issues with the light, I've had to buy some new ones, so if there's a few issues here and there, maybe it looks like I'm Zordon in Power Rangers, but just please let it slide for a few weeks just whilst I'm waiting for an electrician to come and fix it. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like this video, why did you get this far? If you're new here, you couldn't join the dog pound at a better time, so get your paws all over that subscribe button and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a video. Check out some of my social media links, and as well we've got our own Reddit page r/MadDogComic community, and if you want to support the channel, it is greatly appreciated. I've got Amazon affiliate links down below. It isn't going to increase the price, I can't see any of your details, it just means that eventually I can improve the equipment on this channel. But that's the first review of 2021 done, and there's more to follow, but until then, all I've really got to say is to stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.